We are going to study how do organisms reproduce. So we will be discussing how what is reproduction and how does the organism reproduce. So let's begin this chapter. After all, reproduction is a necessary for maintain the life of an individual organism, and unlike the essential life processes such as nutrition, respiration, and excretion, it is not necessary to maintain the life of individual. Like these are nutrition and respiration and excretion are necessary. So how do we know that two different individual organisms belong to the same species? Those two individuals who can reproduce together. Reproducing organism create new individual that look similar, very much similar like themselves. If two species of two organisms are reproducing and have a sexual interest in them, then they are called as members of the same species. And reproduction is a reproduction of organism. Uh, this is one organism, and this is again reproducing again. That means again producing. So suppose this is a X organism, it is again producing one more individual, let's say two more individual like XA and XB. So this again producing of the same species having almost similar characters is called reproduction, and this is done by two ways. Different animals and different plants and different uh, celled organisms reproduce uh, differently, and in this chapter we are going to study that. How do organisms create exact copy of themselves? How it is creating? They are creating by copying the DNA. The chromosome in the nucleus of the cell contains information for inheritance of features from parent to next generation in the form of DNA, that we have already studied in the previous chapter, that there is a cell and each cell has a nucleus, and nucleus contain chromatin, and chromatin at the time of cell divisions converts into chromosome, and chromosome contain this molecule. This is called deoxyribonucleic acid, this molecule, and this molecule contain the information for inheritance. It contains how code for the RNA, and RNA code for the protein. So the DNA in the cell nucleus is the information source of making protein. If the information is changed, a different protein will be made, and different protein will eventually lead to the altered body design. So copying the exact copy of a DNA will create a new individual which is exact copy. Therefore a basic, however, there is no exact copy, because while DNA replicates, uh, there are some errors. These errors are called mutation, and due to this mutation there is a slight variance in the in the newly reproduced organisms. So therefore a basic event of reproduction is a creation of a DNA copy. So reproduction is just a creation of a DNA copy. This is what it do. And after copying a DNA contains information which creates RNA, and after RNA creates protein. So these decides how the body will be function. Everything is decided by the DNA. No biochemical reaction is absolutely reliable. Therefore, it is only to be expected that the process of copying DNA will have some variation in each time. This is why, while copying the DNA, there are some mistakes in it. DNA copy generated will be similar, but not identical to the original. It will be similar. It will be 99, more than the 99% 0.99 will be similar, but it cannot be exact, because during replication some molecules, like combination of some molecule will differ, and this difference is due to copying, and this is called mutation. This inbuilt tendency for variation during the reproduction is the basis of evolution. These mutation is responsible for the evolution. How the this mutation, why this mutation is important, how this variance is, im- is important. If a population of producing organisms were suited in a particular niche, and if the niche were drastically altered, the population could be wiped up. Suppose in a particular environment ecosystem, a certain type of gene is there which is almost similar, they have a similar structure, but any drastic alteration in the environment can wipe out the whole population. Suppose due to the mutation there are some other kinds of different organisms are there, and during some alteration it is possibility that some of these organisms can remain in the environment, and they can further reproduce their offsprings. So this is why the variation is important, because it it increases the chances of survival in case of drastic environmental changes. Variation is thus useful for the survival of species over time. And now we have discussed what is reproduction. Now we are going to discuss modes of reproductions. So basically we have divided into two modes. One mode is sexual, another is asexual. So what happens in both mode? Sexual organisms reproduce by single organisms, and a single organism when produce its kids, so without taking the help of any other, this is called asexual reproduction. And in sexual reproduction, two organisms are when meet, they exchange their gametes, and then a new forms. So two individuals are needed for the sexual reproduction, and in case of asexual reproduction only one individual can reproduce, either in one or maybe two or maybe in a multiple offsprings. So we are going to start with asexual reproduction, or we can say asexual reproduction is performed by mostly a single celled organisms, and others also, but mostly single. So we have a multiple parts for the asexual reproduction. We also discuss these multiple forms of reproducing asexually. The modes by which the various organisms reproduce depends on the body design. So these modes are depend on the body design of the organism. The first mode is fission. We might have studied in class of physics, like nuclear fission, when the one heavy atoms breaks down into two lighter atoms. This is called nuclear fission. Similar happens in fission. Fission means simply breakdown, and organisms also reproduce by dividing into two. For a unicellular organism, cell division or fusion leads to the creation of a new individual, and many different patterns for of the fusion has been observed. uh, so there are many even different patterns of the fusion. So many bacteria and protozoa simply splits into two. So one pattern is splitting into two, one type of fission, and in two equal halves during the cell division. In organisms such as amoeba, the splitting of the two cells during this division take place at any place. So this is how, like, uh, dividing into two is called binary fusion. It fuses into two. See, this is amoeba, and its outer, like, cytoplasm is breaking, and then nucleus breaks, and they become separate two individuals. And also we see a binary fusion where the one individual creates two individuals in Leishmania. Leishmania is a, like, organisms which is also unicellular and which causes kala jar. On the other, single cell organisms such as malaria parasite plasmodium divides into many daughters cells simultaneously in a multiple fusion. And another type of division other than the binary fusion is the multiple fusion, where a single cell divides into multiple organisms. The yeast, on the other hand, uh, can put out a small buds that separates and grow further. So in a plasmodium, which is a malaria parasite, also fuses by multiple fusion. So division into two is happens in amoeba. In multiple fusion is example of plasmodium, which is a malaria parasite. And apart from this fusion, we have another mode of asexual reproduction. This is fragmentation. Let's study what happens in fragmentation. Fragmentation, by they just reproduce by fragmenting into many parts. This is why this is called fragmentation. Suppose this is an individual and it elongates, and after elongation it divides into multiple sections, each having their own nucleus, and these get fragmented into multiple parts like these. Here it is fragmented into five different individuals, and so one individual finally fragmented into five individuals. This is how the fragmentation happens. Spirogyra, for example, simply breaks down into simpler pieces upon maturation. When it matures, it breaks down into smaller pieces. These pieces or fragments grow into the new individuals. Again, these individuals will follow the same route of reproduction. This is not true for all the multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms have a specialized cells are organized. Specialized cells are organized as tissues, and the tissues are organized into organs, and then which then have a place at a definite position in the body. In a such careful organized situation, cell by cell division would be impartial. So in multicellular organisms, we have a very specialized cell and specialized tissue for every organs to performs a different activity in the body, uh, and they have a definite place in their body where the reproduction starts. Reproduction is such organisms is also the function of a specific type of cell. So they have in multicellular organisms. So therefore, although they are complex, they have a multiple functions in their body. So for the reproduction thing, we have a special type of cell in their body which performs the reproduction thing. Another type of mode of asexual reproduction is a regeneration. Simply, but again, it is regenerating. So let's start with the example. So we have a simple case of a hydra and planaria that can cut into the small number of pieces, and each piece grow to a complete organism. This is known as regeneration, and regeneration is carried out by the specialized cell only. So we might have seen in some cartoons and all that if somebody some human lost its fingers, and in some cartoon it regenerates. We have seen in Indian mythology, Ravan, it has 10 heads. So if one head is cut down, it regenerates. So a similar thing happens in biology also, where some organisms, when cut into pieces, it can regenerate its remaining body. Suppose its head is cut and only it has a head. Now it can regenerate the rest of the body. So this is how the the middle part can also regenerate the upper part and lower part, and the lower part can generate the upper part, and they ultimately the cut pieces forms three separate individual by regenerating the cutout uh, organs of the body. So this is how regeneration happens. So this cannot be happen by cutting every part. This cannot be specialized cell. So there must be some specialized cell which knows the memory of complete complete body. It must have a DNA, it must have a nucleus, only then it can regenerate. You might have heard that in our human body, a liver has a property of regeneration. If the liver, suppose this is a liver, triangular shape, if it is cut down by this way, removed, and it can regenerate the cutout part. So similar thing happens in reproduction also. So this is how this mode of reproduction works. Another mode of reproduction is budding. So we see buddings in hydra. In hydra, a bud develops through an outer growth due to the repeated cell division at one specific site. These buds developed into tiny individuals, and when fully mature they detaches from the parent body. So this is how, like, we say it, ankur nikalne se. So bud is a small part here, and this is a specific part with growth with grow rapidly. So there is a rapid cell division is happening, and a new bud forms here, and when the bud get mature, it detaches from the parent body and new forms. This is how in budding, hydra by the bud makes the two organisms. And another way of propagation reproduction, last which is the last form in asexual reproduction, this is the vegetative propagation. There are many plants in which the parts like root, stem, leaves develops into the new plants under the appropriate conditions. So the property of vegetative propagation is used in methods such as layering or grafting to grow the many plants like sugarcane, rose, grapes for the agriculture purposes. Plants raised by the vegetative propagation can bear a flowers or fruit earlier than those produced from the seeds, and such method also make possible the propagation of the plants such as banana, orange, rose, jasmine that have lost the capacity for producing seed. So this can be used uh, as a commercial purposes, and these are used for uh, growing of the sugar cane and rose and grapes. they have two benefits. One, they gives fruit and flowers earlier than the plant generated through seeds. And another one is the plant can also be generated after, even after it has lost the reproductive capacity. Like reproductive capacity is producing the seed. Another advantage of this is that plant produced are genetically similar, though plant genetically similar enough to the parent plant to have all the characteristics. So also the third thing is the plant produced by the vegetative propagation are uh, generally similar. So it has not explained how this vegetative propagation actually propagates into new individual. Let I try to make this clear. Suppose this is a tree, and it has multiple branches. So what happens is, so this is suppose a rose tree. So what can be done, what can be done I can cut its branch from here, and I can regrow, implant this branch on another type of tree. So I can implant this here, and again the roots will be developed from here. So that means this is also called some artificial crossing or layering of trees. So the this branch of rose can take nutrition from this tree. We have also seen a similar thing in this plant, where uh, from the leaf of this plant a new like plant grows this way on reaching the specific conditions. And different plant have a different specific condition. Suppose we might have like noticed one thing, in mostly in summers we have seen our playground doesn't have any vegetation. It is totally full of muddy playground. And we saw in after few rainy season, in one monsoon season, the playground shows full of becomes full of grass, the green grass, small green grasses. So how does this happens? This happens because of vegetative propagation. Because during the summer season, although it doesn't have any visible vegetation there, but they have some part of it, and some seeds, and some uh, some some part uh, 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 of a particular grass, that on reaching a specific condition, in this case specific condition is getting a rain, getting enough moisture, so they generates a new type of new grass from the existing one. And this is how the desert looking field turns into the grass field. What is a tissue culture? Tissue culture is artificial reproduction of tissues in a controlled laboratory. So they are placed in artificial medium where they divide rapidly to form a small group of cells called cells. These cells are then transferred into another medium containing hormones for growth and differentiation. Under these conditions they grow and differentiate, and when they become plantlet, uh, big enough to place them into soil, and so that they can further mature into large plants. So this technique is commonly called ornamental plantation. So this is how the tissue culture starts. So by simply by in a plate of tissue, a single cell is there, and they are placed there for uh, the reproduction, and it will asexually reproduce into many daughter cells. They will further placed into a different cells where they were injected with some growth hormones and differentiation, so they will become small plants, and they will again replace into uh, a different medium where they can grow into plantlets, and these plantlets can be put into soils, and so after that, the plant can grow full. This is how we are artificially uh, growing plants through in a laboratory. And another type of asexual mode for reproduction is a spore formation. So what happens in a spore formation? Even many simpler individuals, even simpler multicellular individual, the specific reproductive part can be identified. The thread-like structure that develops on the bread. A thread-like structure that develops on the bread are hyphae of the bread molds and rhizopus. They are not reproductive part. On the other hand, the tiny bomb on the stick structure are involved in reproduction. The bomb are spongia, which contain cells or spores that can eventually develop into the new rhizopus individual. So the spores are covered with the thick walls that protect them until they come into the contact with another moist surface and can begin to grow. So this is how this is a rhizopus. We can see them in a bread mold. They have a thread-like structure, and on the top of the thread-like structure there is a ball shaped this thing, and this is called spongia, and it contains spores. When it gets in contact with the moisture, it breaks, it bursts, and small spores spread out, and these spores again generates into the individual rhizopus. And this is how the bread molds uh, spreads in the moisture. The new generation can be created from a single individual. This is known as a asexual reproduction. So this is the asexual reproduction that we have discussed here, why different modes are there, fusions are there, where we study two types of fusion. One is binary, another is a multiple fusion. Then we studied about fragmentation, when the plant is fragmenting into multiple parts. Then we also studied about the regeneration, when the when any specific organisms like Planera have properties of regenerating its cutout body. Then we have also read about this latest one, spore formation. They do spread from the spore, some through vegetative propagations. When the plant, some specific part of the plant like leaf or shoot, some part of shoot has a properties of generating the new organisms when reach at a specific condition includes moisture, temperature, and water availability in surroundings. And we have also studied budding in a hydra, where the small buds forms, and it's it rapidly differentiate and growth and grow, and on maturation it detaches from the original plant original parent plant. And this is how the budding, how the like budding also forms a new individuals. So these are the 4 5 types of modes, which depends upon the body design, which is basically depends on the body design. And these are the modes for the asexual reproduction in mostly a single celled organisms, and some are also in a multicellular. Fusion happens in a single celled. So in this case, only the single individual was required, and single celled happens in only the fission, and rest are on the multicellular organisms. And in this type of reproduction, only single individual is required, and there is a no need of two individuals. So this is why it is called asexual reproduction. Now let us talk about the sexual mode of reproduction, so in which two individuals are required. And why the sexual mode of reproduction? What is the need for the sexual mode of reproduction? If the sexual mode is of reproduction is already producing the lot of different varieties and modes, and also it is going there, the individual is creating new individuals, it is fine there. So why this sexual mode of reproduction develops? Only the reason is, in a sexual mode of reproduction, uh, where the singles or individual is copying into the another individual. What is happening in this case? Only the small change will happen due to the mutation in the DNA. So the identity of the newly created individual will be almost similar to the this individuals. So there will be very slight difference between them, and this difference will come from the during the DNA replication, due to the mutation during the DNA replication. So they do not produce much variety. So most of the individual created by sexual modes are similar. Suppose in case of any adverse environmental effect, they all can be wiped out. So there was uh, a need for the population which has a lot of variations. Some are, suppose they have a multiple body design, body type, and their living conditions are different. The temperature and everything should be different in them, and this different thing can be only attained by getting lot of variation in them. So DNA copying is not sole providing enough variation. So a new mode of reproduction was involved, in which the genes DNA of the two individuals are getting mixed, and it is getting half of its DNA, and it is also getting the half of its DNA. So new individual so in this case, the new individual which is created has lot of variations, because it is only uh, carrying half DNA from this parent and half from this parent. So it have a lot of variations. So 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 in case of any environmental issues, adverse environmental surroundings, some may die, there is a still possibility that some may survive in this case. So So throughout the evolution history of about 4.5 billions of our planet, about 4 billions of life history, so we have come up with the most or organisms is producing through sexual modes, because we get lot of variations, and variations ultimately leads into diversity in organisms. So these reproductive modes allow more and more variation in to be generated. I have already explained this DNA thing, and let's study about the how we will study how about two types of reproduction in this case, sexual reproduction. One is sexual reproduction in flowering plant, and another is sexual reproduction is human. So let's first look at the parts of the plant. This is a plant. It has a petal, and it has a two types. It has a red thing is there. This is for the attraction. This is for the attracting a bee, or someone who needs a nectar, or some insect or some flies. This bright color is for the attracting them. And it has a one part. This is called stigma. It contain ovary, and this is called pistil. It has a stigma. And another thing is the stamen. This is called stamen. It has a anther, and this is a filament here. So this flower also has ovary here. So we can, by looking into it, can see this is a this part is a female part, and these are the male parts. Let's study. Stamen and the pistil are the reproductive part of a flower which contain germ cells. So where is the stamen? This is the stamen. This one. This is the stamen. And let me change the color. So this is a stamen, and and pistil. What is this pistil? This is a pistil. It contains stigma, it contains style, and it contains ovary. So these two things, first this one and this one, are the reproductive part of a flower which contains germ cells. Germ cells are those which can, when fused together, germinates a new individuals. Flower may be bisexual like papaya or watermelon, which contain both the stamen and the pistil. So those flower which contain both male and female, this is a male and female uh, parts, are called bisexual, and those who contain only one are unisexuals. Uni means one, either a male or female. Or those which contain both stamen and this pistil are bisexual, because they contain both organs, male organs and female organs. Stamen is a male, and it produces pollen grains. They are yellowish in color, and pistil is present in the center of the flower, and the stamen is rounded. Its stamen surrounds the pistil, and pistil is a female part, and it is divided into three. One is stigma, style, and ovary. The swollen bottom part is a ovary, and this is ovary, and the middle elongated part is called style, and this is style, and there is a terminal part which may be sticky is a stigma. This is stigma, and this is also sticky. It can stick anything, so it can. This is for the pollen can be attached to it. The ovary contains ovules, and each ovule has a egg cell. Thus, the pollen needs to be transferred from the stamen to the stigma, and this transfer of the pollen occurs. If this transfer of the pollen occurs in the same flower, it is called self-pollination. And in case it is the pollen is from the different flower or another plant, this is called cross-pollination. So this is the flower, which is a bisexual flower. So if the pollen grains from this stamen get sticked into the this stigma, this is called self pollination. Or suppose case pollen from another flower, by somehow due to the process of wind and other bees somehow get sticked into the stamen, and it again goes there, and this types of pollination is called cross pollination. After fertilization, the zygotes, when the both male and female, it travels through it. After the pollen reaches here, it travels through this tube, which is called style, and it finally fuses with the female uh, or female sex cell. And after fertilizing with the female sex cell, a zygote divides several times to form an embryo within the ovules. The ovules develop a tough coat and is gradually converted into seed. The ovary grow rapidly and ripen to form a fruit. And this ovary ultimately like converts into the fruit. And meanwhile, the petal, spell, and stamen, style, and stigma may be shriveled and fallen off. They are of no use, so they get fallen off. They get shrink and fallen off, and ultimately the ovary, which after a multiple division has a seeds, and its seed is covered by the ripened ovary, which is a ripened fruit. So all the fruits are nothing but a ripened ovary. And so when some animal will come, it will eat food, and seeds, if seeds will be thrown out, if also the seeds are digested, if seeds are eaten, seeds covering the hard layer, and it does not got digested in most of the digestive systems of the animals. So ultimately in the feces the seeds come, and when it is dropped down on the soil, it can germinate when reaching on a specific condition, like enough moisture and enough water around there. So this is how reproduction happens in the plants. So these ripen ovary, which is a fruit, is juicy, and it is very sweet, just to attract another organisms so that he can eat, and he can take her seeds to a different part of the land. And this is how it is a like evolutionary trick. It is a trick how it can ultimately reproduce. Now talk about the reproduction in human beings. There are two types of sexual characteristics in human beings. One is primary and another is a secondary. Primary sexual characteristics are those sexual organs or sexual changes which we carry from uh, which we have from our birth. So we have well differentiated reproductive parts in both male and female at the time of birth. So these are called primary sexual characteristics. And what are the secondary? The changes which happens during the puberty in male and females are called secondary sexual characteristics. What are those changes? uh, Thickening of hair, thick hair growing in new parts, thick hair growing in new parts of the body such as armpit, genital area, and between the thighs, which can also become a darker in color. The skin frequently become oily and we might begin to develop the pimples. These are the changes which happens during puberty. In females, we see the breast size begin to increase, the darkening of the skin near nipples, at the tip of the breast, and they begin to menstruate, and boys begin to have a thick hair growth on the face, and their voice begin to crack, and the penis occasionally begins to become enlarged or erect, and either in the daydreams or at night. So these are the changes which both male and female, uh, we talking about the humans, both male and female go through during the puberty time, about 11 to 10 to 14 years. It happens 1 or 2 years earlier in females, let's say 10 to like 12 year 13 years in females and 13 to 14 in males, and these are called secondary sexual characteristics. And what these characteristics shows, this shows that the sexual organs have reached maturation, they are matures. That means they are ready to function, and their function is the only function is reproduction. And this period during the adolescence is called puberty. Sexual mode of reproduction means that the germ cell from two individuals have to join together, and this can happen by external release of germ cell from the body of individuals, as happens in a flowering plant, or it can happen by two individuals joining their body together for the internal transfer of germ cells for fusion. This happens in many animals. So where there is a sexual copulation, where the both male and female sex organ interacted each other, so that they can internally transfer the germ cells. And there are also some like frog, in case of frog, so female frog, there happens in external fertilization. So they simply do what they do, male and female frog, uh, they ejaculates their reproductive uh, cells in the water, and they let the water, they left them in the water, and in water they get they comes together and they fuse and they create new individuals. So this is called external fertilization, where the fertilization is happening external environment, not in the not inside the organism but outside the organisms. But in most of the organisms, in human being, the fertilization happens internally. Although we have now technologies for external fertilization, that will call test tube babies, where the male sperm and female sperms are like inject um, in a controlled situation. We insert a male sperm in the female ovum through a syringe. So this happens outside, and this is also artificial fertilization. So let us study about the male reproductive organs. Before going reading this, let see the picture. This is the euthera. From here, the this this is only, like, passes for both sperm and urine, and this is called penis. Penis get erected when there is a blood flow. Increased blood flow is there, and in case of no blood, uh, they it relaxes and it becomes soft. We have already studied in photosynthesis, where the guard cell, which controls the oxygen, guard cell in a chlorophyll, which control the oxygen, like, when the water flows in, it becomes rank. It souls after it gets swollen. It allows the gaseous exchange like CO2 and oxygen, and when the water removes, it becomes shrink, so it blocks the opening of the exchange of the gases. Similar thing happens in the penis. When the blood flow increases here, it gets swollen. Definitely it will erect, or opposite happens if there is no blood in, no blood enough to this get erected. So here, this is a prostate gland. This is a bladder. It stores urine, and this is a seminal vessels. It contains the semen. Semen is a lubricating fluid, which gives, when it mixed with the sperm coming from the testis, gives it, like, good condition, and also the nutrition for it, for its long survival. So these are the vein difference. This is the oviduct. Sorry, this is the duct which carries the sperms into this tube, and these are testes. Testes has a highly differentiated somniferous uh, spermy sperm making cells. This is euthera. This is coming from the kidneys. Let's study this. The formation of a germ cell or the sperms take place in the testes, and they are located outside the abdominal cavity in the scrotum, because the sperm formation requires lower temperature than the normal body temperature. So it requires a less temperature. So it is outside the body, because our body has more temperature. It comparatively it requires 1 or 2 degree, 3 degree less temperature than our body temperature. And when the surrounding temperature falls down, these this scrotum again attaches close to the this body part, so that it can gain heat from our body. Testes- Testosterone brings about the change in the appearance seen in the boy at the time of puberty. These secondary sexual characteristics are due to the testosterone. When difference, which is united with the tube coming from the uni- urinary bladder. So the both tubes when divorce, and this urethra gets, like, unites here. The urethra thus forms a common passage for the both sperms and urine. Along the path of the vein different glands like prostate and seminal vesicles add their secretion, so that the sperm are now in a fluid, and which make their transport easier, and this fluid also provide nutrition. It has a two works. One is, it it makes easier for the transportation because of the fluid, and also provides nutrition. And about the female reproductive organs, This is the ovary where every month one ovary get released, and almost all the ovaries are there at the time of uh, uh, at the time of when this girl was in her mother's womb. When the child was developing in a womb. So most of the ovaries are egg cells are developed here. That we will study this in our 12th class. 12th class have a better explanation of this. And this is the oviduct, and this is the passage after ovulation. The ovaries travels through this. It is also divided into multiple parts. Fallopian, this is also called fallopian tube. It has a multiple part also. One part I can remember is a ampulla, where the most of the fertilization happens. And this is the uterus. This is uterus lining. And we also have divided into three: this perimetrium, mesometrium, and uh, like these have a name similar to this. We will study in the 12th class. And this is cervix. This divides the vaginal canal. This is a like block, and this is a wall between the vaginal canal and this ovary, uterus, sorry. So when a girl is born, ovaries already contain thousands of immature eggs. So even so, these ovaries are there. Immature ovary contain immature eggs. These immature eggs are, what happens in males during the puberty. The sex cell forms, which is testosterone. Sorry, which is sperms. Sperms forms after puberty, which is a male sex cell. But in females, it is not happens after on after puberty. They already contain immature egg cells from the birth, and they formed when they were inside their mother's womb. When they forms their each organ at that time. They also forms ovaries. They have immature eggs, and after puberty, they each egg for month gets matured and they get releases. On reaching puberty, some of these started maturing about one egg per month. Uterus prepares itself every month. Uterus prepares itself every month to receive and nurture the growing embryo. And the lining thickens, and it richly supplied with the blood to nourish the growing embryo. And so, like, sperm when injected through the vaginal canal through the natural copulation, or in case of artificial like fertilization, it can be ejected through the artificial mean in the fallopian tube. So what happens in this case? So the egg coming from the ovaries get fertilized into fallopian tube, especially mostly in 90% cases in the ampulla region. So they get fertilized, and these fertilized egg get divided into many parts. And after 12 to 18 division, they finally reaches into this region. And this is a rich supply with the rich blood supply. And this lining the egg get implanted in this layering. If this not happens, if the egg do not get fertilized, so this layering and egg died immediately, and this layering comes out. this blood layering comes out in the form of menses. And in case of fertilization, when the baby develops, there is a placenta called, which connects the baby from the mother. This is the ovary, and this is suppose a baby. From its navel there is a placenta is there, which supplies everything is there, everything between nutrition, excretion, even the respirations happens through this tubes, which is a placenta. This is a disc which enables in the uterine wall. It contains villi that we study in the intestine. We in our intestine which have a villi, which have a very very much which have a large number of blood supplying uh, blood supplying uh, arteries and veins. This provides a large surface area to for a glucose and oxygen to pass from the mother to the embryo. And the developing embryo will also generate waste substance, which can be removed by transferring them into the mother's blood through placenta. So everything, both the nutrition and the excretion, is happening in the baby through this placenta. And the child is born as a result of rhythmic contraction of the muscles of the uterus. So there is a rhythmic contraction in the muscles of the uterus, and which finally ejects the baby out of this uterus. Let's talk about the reproductive health. These include many things like avoiding uh, unnecessary pregnancy, and also the disease that transferred through sexually transfers. These includes bacterial infections like gonorrhea and gonorrhea and syphilis, and viral infections such as uh, HIV, HIV/AIDS. So these two are bacterial, and this one is viral. So these are the bacteria which can pass from one body to another body during sexual interaction. Another things which in case of in reproductive health is like avoiding unwanted pregnancy. Another category of contraceptive pills act by changing the hormonal. How does the contraceptive pills uh, like avoids the pregnancy? They change the hormonal balance of the body so that eggs are not released and fertilization do not occur. So commonly we have in market like IPL and unwanted 75. It like changes hormonal balance, so it avoids ovulation in females only. These are for the females, and it avoids ovulation, these pills. And another contraceptive, the first contraceptive is there is like using of some condoms in the penis. And another thing is like there is a copper tea which is called for used in a urethra. And also there is a spermicide tube which is injected in the vaginal tube before coitus. So the most, if sperm released, can be killed by the spermicide tube. Other contraceptive devices such as the loop or the copper T are placed in the uterus to prevent pregnancy. And in case of like There is another type of like uh, there is another way by which a man become sterile by cutting the Van Divas. Uh, the Van Divas is in the male blocks the sperm transfer. If we cut in the Van difference in the male, uh, it is the duct in which the sperm flows. If it is cut into two, then transfer of the sperm can be prevented. And how it happens in the females, this is called fallopian tube, where the sperms where the after ovulation the egg travels. So fallopian tubes in the male is blocked with the egg will not able to reach the uterus, so it will not get fertilized. So these are the surgical methods. This is for the males, and cutting of the Van difference is for the males, and cutting of the fallopian tube is for females. We also have a separate name for this. This is called, this is Van difference. This is called vasectomy. Vasectomy is, tomy means cut, TOMY. Tomy means cut. So vasectomy is when the vas difference is cut, and there is a, this is called like nasbandi in Hindi. And when the fallopian tube is cut, we call it tubectomy. When the fallopian tube is cut, is tubectomy. So suppose this is a tube, so it is cut this way, so it bends this way like, so it is like tightly roped here. So this is how we cut the tubes. Let's quickly revise the chapter. Reproduction, unlike other life processes, is not essential for maintaining the life of the individual. It is only for the reproducing, again producing new individuals. Reproduction involves the creation of a DNA copy and additional cellular apparatus by the cell involved in the process, and various organisms use a different mode of reproductions depending on their design, body design. And in fission, many bacteria and protozoa simply divides into two or more daughter cells. Organisms such as Hydra can regenerate if they are broken into pieces. They can also give out the buds, which matures into the new individuals. And the root, stem, and leaves of the some plants develop the new plants through the vegetative propagation. And these are the examples of asexual reproduction, which generates new individuals by where the new individuals are created from a single individual. And in sexual reproduction involves two individuals for the creation of the new individual. The DNA copy mechanism create variations which are useful for ensuring the survival of the species. The modes of the sexual reproduction allow the greater variations to be generated. So this sexual modes allows the greater variations. Along with the DNA mutation, it also contains half male and half female genes. So there is a lot of variation and diversity in the organisms as compared to the asexual mode of reproduction. Reproduction in a flowering plant involves transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma, which is referred as a pollination, and this is followed by the fertilization. Fertilization is when the male and female egg cells fuses into each other. This is called fertilization. Pollination is a simply transfer of pollen grain from stigma to the transfer of pollen grains from stamen to stigma. Stamen is a male part and stamen is a female part, which is a sticky. So this is only transfer of pollen grains. Male reproductive systems in human beings consist of testes, which produces sperms when different, and seminal vesicles, prostate gland, and urethra and penis. Female reproductive systems in human beings consist of ovaries, fallopian tube, uterus, and vagina. And sexual reproduction in human beings involves the introduction of sperm into the vagina of the female, and fertilization occurs in the fallopian tube, especially at ampulla. And this introduction of the sperm into the vagina is called internal fertilization. And if the fertilization happens outside the body, this is called external fertilization. A contraception to avoid pregnancy can be achieved by use of condoms uh, by males, oral pills by females, copper tea by the females, and other methods are the surgical methods where there is a tubectomy and vasectomy. Tubectomy for the cutting of the fallopian tube in females, and vasectomy the cutting of the vas deferens in males. And other methods also includes like uh, diaphragm. There is a diaphragm which is introduced in a female vagina near the clit. Sorry, let me explain this here. Uh, Introduction of diaphragm in the female vagina near the cervix. This is called diaphragm, and after injecting it, it is also uh, like like supplemented by the uh, a spermicide tube. Spermicide tube is also injected, and when after the copulation, uh, if the sperm is released, the sperm cannot enter there because the diaphragm prevents it. Also, the spermicides kills the sperm. Here the chapter ends.